This generation Renault Koleos has been on sale for ages now, and look, there are some ways in which it shows its age, but in other ways, it's actually quite appealing and better than some of the new rivals out there. So, in this review, I'm going to tell you all about it and whether you should consider it, and the best alternatives to it as well. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring the bell, and let's get to it. As I said, this version of the Renault Koleos has been around for a long time now, almost a decade. It originally launched back in 2016, and sure, it is showing its age, but I think it still looks pretty contemporary, and it still has a fairly good lineup in terms of what you're paying and what you're getting. Now, there are just two versions available in the Koleos lineup these days. The entry-level one has recently been axed, but there are strong deals available on this model range if you are willing to consider it, so make sure you shop around. Now, let's talk about the two different grades available. This one is the entry-level version. It's called Zen, and it comes with a heap of standard features, and, well, it actually seems pretty good for the money. You'll see the price for it on your screen now, and things that you get as standard include LED headlights and daytime running lights. You've got 18-inch alloy wheels. On the inside, you've got leather interior trim with an electric driver's seat. There's also a nice touchscreen media system in portrait display. There's also a hands-free key card and push-button start. You've got heated front seats, dual-zone climate control, wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and sat-nav, and you've got a digital instrument cluster as well. And if you want a few extra features, well, you need to shop up to the high-spec model. It's called Intense, and it's available in front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. Probably don't need the all-wheel drive, but you do get a few extra features in that top-spec Intense grade, including a panoramic sunroof, 19-inch alloy wheels, and it's got ventilation for the front seats as well. So it might be worth spending a little bit extra to get those extra features, but hey, I'm going to tell you some good alternatives to this car, because there are a couple of really good ones. Okay, if you're thinking that you want something that is value for money focused, I think you should go and have a look at the MG HS. The new generation version is not perfect, but it is a greatly improved option compared to the previous one. It looks great on the outside, it feels great on the inside, it's got a nice interior finish, bigger, more high-tech looking screens, and I think it could be a really good choice for you if you are on a budget. It comes with a 10-year warranty as well, which could be enticing in its own right. Another option you might want to wait for is the new generation Volkswagen Tiguan. Now, it's probably going to cost about as much as the high-grade version of this at the entry point, but it is going to offer a really nice drive experience. I drove it in Europe recently and thought it was fantastic, and it could be worth waiting for if you can wait a couple more months, because it's early 2025. It's due here around the middle of the year. And finally, if you're looking for an SUV about this size and you want to consider some other powertrain options, well, maybe a Kia Sportage would be a good choice for you. There's a non-turbo petrol, a turbo petrol, a petrol hybrid version, and also a diesel. And there's a facelift for the Sportage coming very soon. I think the existing one looked pretty good, but the new one looks even better, and it promises to offer plenty of value as well, and plenty of different versions to choose from too. So, would you pick any of those or something else? Let me know in the comments. Now, you may or may not know this, but this is essentially a re-skinned version of the existing Nissan X-Trail. It looks really good still, I reckon. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. It's about the same size as most mid-size SUVs should be, in the 4.6 metre range. It is strictly a 5-seater, so that could be something you want to keep in mind. You can get some other mid-size SUVs about this size with 7 seats. So if you want those bonus seats, then maybe you should be looking elsewhere. But honestly, I think it still looks pretty tidy and not overdone in terms of the chrome stuff either, even though there is a fair bit of the chromey finishing on this car. Now let's have a look at the back here. I think it looks really smart still, kind of like an Audi Q7 in my mind. And yes, it's got the Koleos badging pretty proudly at the back there. Let's take a look in the boot, see what we're dealing with. Electric tailgate on all grades in this lineup, which is a bonus. And you'll see for yourself there is a massive amount of boot space. You can see the figure on your screen now, and it means that you can fit a family's worth of stuff, or maybe a small family's weekend's worth of stuff at least. Right, on the sides here, you do have a little storage caddy. There's a 12-volt port. There's another little storage caddy over there, excuse my shadow. And underneath here, well, there's a big polystyrene finisher. and a space saver spare wheel under there. That's right. So it does seem to be pretty promising in terms of what you're getting and the size and usability of the boot. So let's take a look inside and see how it feels. Righto, so here's your point of view perspective of what it's like to sit in the driver's seat of the Renault Koleos. I think it's still pretty contemporary. Like, I think it's actually a bit more impressive in some ways compared to some of the new models out there, which focus so much on just big screens and blingy things. This is maybe a bit more boring, but actually pretty good, apart from some of the ergonomic quirks. We'll get to those in a sec, but let's talk about what you're getting here. So you've got a 7-inch digital instrument cluster there with the digital speedo and tacho, and there is a bit of information that can be cycled through on that screen down the bottom there, as you can see. To do so, you can just do that with these little steering wheel controls here, and that will allow you to toggle through some of the trip computer elements. And over on this screen, it's a portrait design, the touchscreen media system here. And I have to say, it does take a little bit of learning. It will take a couple of days for you to get your head around it. And that's okay. It's certainly simpler than some of the other vehicles on the market when it comes to the design here. It's just that you really need to be aware of the main controls being through the screen. So you've got climate control dials down there, but if you want to adjust the fan speed, you actually have to go through the screen here. So for instance, I'll just do that. Yeah, so that's your fan speed adjuster. You can use the plus and minus buttons to adjust the fan speed if you wish, or you can just put it onto normal, fast, or soft. You can adjust where the direction of the air is going up there. Just turn that off because it's a bit noisy. And that is the thing that will take the most getting used to. But honestly, it'll just take a day or two of driving this car for you to get used to it. Down below, there are seat heating buttons as well. And yes, it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as sat-nav. The sat-nav is okay, I would say. It's one of those TomTom style ones. It's pretty simple to use. But if you want to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you can. You just have to plug into one of the USB ports, which is down there. So that's decent, I would say. There's also a little storage area there where you can put your phone, but it doesn't have a wireless phone charger, which is a shame. It's just showing its age again. Pretty conventional looking shifter, and you've got an electronic park brake. Now here's one of the ergo quirks with this car. That is where you will activate your cruise control, and you press that to turn it on, as you can see when it's on up there. And then to adjust things using the cruise control, it's these controls here. It's a bit strange. I mean, a button up here would have been handy. Then you might be thinking, where's your volume stuff? Well, that's there on this little stalk that pokes off the steering column for your stereo controls. That is definitely a little bit old school, a little bit French and strange, but yes, you do get used to it, I think. I have over this week of testing. You've got your blinkers and lights on that side and your wipers on that side too. There's a whole panel of blanks down here for this base grade car, but at least you get an electronic boot opening button there. And I think that it's pretty decent in terms of the usability in here, and the storage is not bad either. Now, one thing I want to call out here is that there's a very interesting array of cup holder options here, but if you've got your air conditioning or your heating on, you can open a little vent there to keep that cup nice and warm or cool, depending on what you're aiming to achieve. There is a covered center console in there, yes, with a USB cable in it, and you've got bottle holders in the doors, a reasonably good glove box for a French car, and you've got these comfy leather seats. They are actual leather finishing. Now, the passenger seat in this entry-level version is a manual one, but you do get electric seat adjustment for the driver's side. And I've been pretty comfortable. They are kind of firm, these seats, but it's pretty comfortable, I would say. There's also ambient lighting in the doors, but you can barely see it on a bright day like today. All right, let's check out the back seat space and see what it's like. I'll tell you what it's like. It's really, really good. This seat is set for my driving position at 182 centimeters or 6 foot. Yes, I've got ample leg room, heaps and heaps of foot wiggle room, And yeah, it's pretty good in terms of the height back here too. So heaps of headroom above my head and plenty of width to the cabin too. So you will be able to fit 3 adults across the back if you want to or need to. You've also got ISOFIX points in the window seats, 3 top tethers across this back row. There's a flip down armrest with some cup holders of different sizes, and you've got bottle holders in the doors too. On the seat backs, you will find there are mesh mat pockets, which is good, and those are the hard kickback variety, so your kiddo can go to town kicking away as mine did. And there's a couple of directional air vents down here, USB ports by 2, which is good, and 12 volt as well. So it's a pretty spacious cabin, pretty thoughtful and pretty comfortable. And also I have to say that the seat positioning is good in the back. It's quite a stadium seat height, so you sort of sit a little higher than the seats in front. That's one of the traits of this Nissan X-Trail based platform. It's good. On the side here, you've also got a little light, so you can turn it on when you're loading a kiddo in or out, or map reading in the back. And you've also got a grab handle here with a little coat hook. Oh, I forgot to call out in the front, there are these sliding visors. So let me just see if I can reach from here. Yeah, you can adjust that visor, so when you're driving, you can block out more of the light in your eyes. And yeah, there's a little illuminated vanity mirror too, and a sunglasses holder, and an auto-dimming rear view mirror. So yeah, on the whole, cabin in this car, not too bad at all. All versions of the Renault Koleos come with a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine. It's not turbocharged, and it does have pretty modest power and torque outputs. You'll see them on your screen now. And it's exclusively available with a CVT automatic transmission, whether you choose the front-wheel drive version or opt for the all-wheel drive version, which is the highest grade available in Australia. Now, you'll see some towing details on your screen as well. I don't think this is the ideal tow vehicle, but hey, it's good to see that it can cope with a little bit of load. All right, let's go for a drive and see what it's like. All right, let's talk about the drive experience in this Koleos. So, not much has changed over the years. Still the same petrol engine, CVT auto, and well, still some of the same sort of strange dynamics to this car. It's got a really nice ride. The comfort on offer here is very good. It handles lumps and bumps pretty well. It does have a slightly firm edge to it, but I like that personally. And these are the smaller wheels with the slightly higher profile tires, so it might be worse in the higher grade version with the slightly skinnier profile tires, but I like the ride in it. What I don't really gel with is the steering. I struggle with this steering. It's very artificially heavy feeling, and it's really quite difficult to trust this steering in my opinion. I just don't like it. I've had it for a week and I just haven't been able to get to terms with how it behaves in terms of the steering. So that might be something you want to test out when you go for a test drive if you're interested in this car, but I think that for the most part, you'll get used to it. It's just that there are other cars in this segment which drive much better than this in terms of the steering response and feel and accuracy. It's pretty easy to park the car though at lower speeds. There is a reversing camera and surround sensors for this vehicle too, so front, rear and side sensors, and it can park itself for you if you want. And I don't really use that technology. I think it's a bit gimmicky, but if you are a nervous parker, maybe it will be a godsend for you. I just don't really dig it personally. We need to talk about this powertrain. So it is that naturally aspirated, non-turbocharged, that is, a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine. That is a fine engine. It's fine, but it's not much more than fine. And the CVT automatic transmission does make it feel a little bit less than fine in some situations. So it does have a tendency to feel like it's robbing the engine of a bit of power in some instances, but it does also have a tendency to make it feel like you've got enough torque to just pull the vehicle along without too much fuss. And I think for the most part in stop-start situations it's okay. At highway speed it's fine too. So it's not fun, it's not thrilling, it's not joyful, but it gets the job done. And if that's the sort of SUV you're looking for, then maybe this will be a great choice for you. Now, there are some other things I want to call out about it. It doesn't have any of the annoyances in terms of the safety spec and tech. So there is no driver monitoring camera system like lots of new cars have, and there's no speed sign warning or detection system either. And for me, that's a bit of a plus, because it means this car doesn't get on your nerves quite as much as some of the new rivals might. In my mind, it's easier to live with for that reason, and in fact, I found it pretty nice to live with more generally. Maybe one other final criticism is the amount of road noise and engine noise that comes into the cabin. So when you're really up it in terms of trying to get up a hill or something, you can hear that engine making quite a noise, and the road noise intrusion is really noticeable. On the highway, on rough surfaces, you have to raise your voice quite a bit. On your screen, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the Renault Koleos lineup. That is, well, a pretty okay number. That's what you should be able to achieve across a mix of different driving scenarios. And over my week of testing and my mix of driving, I've seen a bit higher than that. You'll see the number on screen now. I think that's okay, but if you are willing to consider one of those other rivals that I mentioned, or a hybrid vehicle like a RAV4 or something like that, you might see much better fuel consumption on the daily. But at least this vehicle can run on 91 RON regular unleaded petrol, and it does have a reasonably big fuel tank as well, 60 litres, so should be a fairly decent amount of driving between refuels. This car doesn't have an official safety rating. It did have an ANCAP 5-star rating, but it has expired because this vehicle is old. Now, that might seem bad in some ways, but it does mean that it doesn't have any of the annoying active safety technology that some new cars have. So there's no driver monitoring camera system to distract you by thinking that you're distracted. And there's also none of those really annoying speed sign chimes. So that could be something that entices you towards this car. Now let's talk about some of the standard features that it does still have. Things like autonomous emergency braking. There's a form of lane departure alert. There's blind spot monitoring, but no rear cross traffic alert, which is a shame. You get front and rear and side parking sensors, as well as a reversing camera, but there is no surround view camera. So there are some pluses and some minuses when it comes to this vehicle in terms of the safety tech and spec. And there's also 6 airbags fitted, dual front, side and full length curtain coverage, so it doesn't have one of those front center airbags like lots of the newer vehicles out there. I still think that it will be a pretty safe bet, but maybe not as safe on paper compared to some of those new cars out there. Renault Australia backs the Koleos with a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is better than some of the other Renaults on sale in our market, and I think that that is enticing in its own way. Now, there's also some promotional stuff to consider. Often the brand will offer a pretty extensive ownership package, including 7 years of servicing covered and 7 years of roadside assistance as well, all at no extra cost. So it might seem to be a pretty good value proposition in terms of the ownership costs. Otherwise, if you aren't able to secure one of those promotional deals, I'll put some pricing on your screen now for the cap price servicing average service cost. And another consideration with this vehicle, it has service intervals of 12 months and 30,000 kilometres. I don't know whether I'd be leaving my car 30,000 Ks between services, but if you're a distance commuter, that might make a lot of sense. What do you think? The Koleos is hardly a thrilling thing to drive, and it's not going to tick the box if you are an enthusiast who really likes to get into their vehicle and enjoy their commute. But I think that for people who just want an SUV with plenty of space, plenty of practicality, and none of those annoying safety features, it could be a really good choice. And it offers pretty good value too. So would you consider it? I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below. And if you own a Koleos, let me know what the ownership experience has been like. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see ya when I see ya.